The risotto simmered low on the stove. A creamy blend of mushroom, garlic, and parmesan, stirred with the patience only 10 years of marriage could teach. David Marshall adjusted the flame and checked the table. Candles lit, napkins folded. A single bottle of wine breathing beside 2 spotless glasses. This was tradition. Jennifer always said it was her favorite. He heard her heels click through the front door and smiled. Perfect timing, he called. No answer. Just the hollow sound of her setting her purse down. Jennifer walked in wearing her tailored work suit. Hair pulled into a high knot. Lips painted with her usual shade of disinterest. She looked around the room but not at him. We need to talk. David paused. Ladle suspended mid-stir. The words were clinical. Not worried. Not soft. Just dry. Sure. Let me plate up first. No, sit. He turned off the stove. The silence stretched, sharp and unwelcome. She sat across from him, arms folded, and exhaled like she was filing paperwork. I've been seeing Robert. The name dropped like a steel beam through glass. Robert, David repeated, blinking once. From college? She nodded. We met for coffee. Then lunch, then more. He kept his hands on the table. Steady. Measured. The kitchen light hummed behind him. I didn't plan it, she added. It just happened. And it made me realize something. He waited. No outburst. No begging. Just the sound of her peeling back years of illusion with the ease of removing makeup. I never really loved you, David. I loved what you could provide. You were safe. You were stable. But Robert, he sees me. His throat didn't tighten. His fists didn't clench. But inside, the floor plan of his life redrew itself in real time. She wasn't just leaving. She was rewriting their entire history. Erasing the blueprints they'd sketched. Together, frame by frame. And you thought tonight was the night to say this? He asked, voice low. She shrugged. Better now than dragging it out. He looked down at the empty plate in front of him. The risotto would congeal and stiffen by the time she finished explaining how everything he built was hollow. You're not even angry? She asked, half curious. He met her eyes for the first time. Anger is for people caught off guard. You weren't. David stood slowly, pushing his chair back with care. I'm an architect, Jen. I've worked on buildings that looked solid for decades. Then one day you test the concrete and realize the mix was off from day one. Weak foundation. Poor load distribution. That's you. She blinked. Excuse me? I thought we were building something real. Turns out I was just furnishing a stage set. And you? You were always waiting for better lighting. He didn't wait for her response. David walked to the stove, turned off the burner, and spooned the risotto into Tupperware. He capped the wine and carried it to the fridge. Every movement was deliberate, controlled, architectural. Where are you going? She asked, the first flicker of uncertainty touching her voice. I'll let you finish dinner. It was for you after all. He didn't slam the door. He didn't raise his voice. He simply walked out because what do you do when the foundation rots? You don't scream at the beams. You demo the whole thing and start over. The hotel room was quiet. Clean lines. Neutral colors. Generic furniture with no memories embedded in the fabric. It was perfect. David Marshall had always admired simplicity, not for its beauty, but for its honesty. Honest structures didn't pretend to be more than they were, unlike people. He sat on the bed, laptop open, fingers steady as he moved $187,000 from his personal design consulting account, one Jennifer had never touched, into a new LLC he registered just 2 hours earlier. The name was symbolic. Solid Base Design Group. A small smirk tugged at his mouth. She would never see a dime of it. He had made sure of that. Back at the house, she was still in the shower. Steam fogging up the mirror just like her morals. She had no idea he was packing. No idea he'd already called Mason, his attorney, and scheduled an emergency filing for divorce first thing Monday. He glanced at the bag by the door. 2 suits, 3 shirts, blueprints for a private commission in Boise. His MacBook, a flash drive of personal documents, and his grandfather's vintage Omega, still ticking after 43 years. He didn't take photos. Didn't take anything sentimental because none of it meant anything anymore. By the time Jennifer turned off the water, he was standing in the kitchen again. Shirt crisp, voice calm, expression unreadable. "Where are you?" "Going?" she asked, towel-wrapped and wet-haired. "Out." "For how long?" "Long enough." She folded her arms. "Don't be dramatic, David. We're both adults here." "No," he said. "We're not both adults. Adults own what they destroy. You're still acting like this is a phase." Jennifer scoffed. "So what? You're leaving now because I told you the truth. After all these years." "I'm leaving," he said, grabbing his keys. "Because now I see clearly. Don't you want to talk about this?" He paused at the door. "You spent 10 years pretending to love me. I made risotto while you made plans to leave. The talking phase is over." Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Just silence. The same silence she used to kill their marriage long before Robert ever resurfaced. "You'll be hearing from Mason Graves. Monday morning. He's filing for divorce." Her eyes narrowed. "You already called a lawyer?" "I told you," he said. Hand on the doorknob. "Clarity. And what about the house?" "Depends on what the judge thinks of adultery and financial dissipation. But I'm not worried." "You're being cruel." David looked her in the eye one last time. Cruel would have been pretending I didn't see the rot and continuing to live inside the lie. He shut the door gently. No slam. No scene. Just the quiet finality of a man who'd measured every line, every angle, and decided it was time to raise it all. Outside, the night air was crisp. He walked to his truck, started the engine, and drove. Not fast. Not angry. Just forward. Some men beg. David Marshall draws a new plan. 3 days passed. David hadn't looked back. Not at the house. Not at old texts. Not even at his wedding band, which he now wore on a keychain like a tag from a failed inspection. He'd spent the first 2 nights in the hotel downtown, reviewing project bids and drawing elevations for a Riverside museum job. Work was therapy. Precision. Purpose. Silence. Then the call came. A known number. Normally he wouldn't answer, but something in his gut told him exactly who it was. He pressed accept and said nothing. There was a pause on the other end. Then her voice, soft, hoarse, wrecked. "David." He waited. I'm sorry," Jennifer whispered. "I'm at a shelter. I didn't know who else to call." Still, he didn't speak. Let her fill the silence this time. It all fell apart. "Robert. He took the money I gave him. Said he needed to invest in a gallery idea. Then he just ghosted. Blocked my number. I have nothing." Her breathing cracked. "I thought I knew him. But I didn't. He used me." David. David stood by the window of his short-term rental. The sunrise spilling through the blinds like truth under interrogation lights. He looked out over the skyline. The steel and glass he once admired. All of it stood because someone respected the process. Jennifer hadn't respected anything. I made a mistake, she continued. Please, I know I hurt you. But I was confused. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was scared of how distant we'd become. And I acted out. But I don't want this. I don't want us to end. Now he spoke, his voice flat as poured concrete. You already ended it, Jennifer. You just waited until I cooked you dinner to say the words. I was wrong. No, he said. You were dishonest. Repeatedly. That's not the same thing. Her desperation began to leak through the cracks. Please, David. I have nowhere to go. I can't stay here. You were always the stable one. I need you now. He took a breath. Then call your lawyer. Mine's already working on the settlement. Don't do this, she said. The first trace of panic in her voice. We were married. For 10 years. We were roommates with tax benefits, he said coldly. You said it yourself. You never loved me. I just listened. Please. He ended the call, then blocked the number. Not out of rage, out of principle. He set the phone down on the table and exhaled. The air felt clean, untouched. He wasn't shaking. He wasn't second-guessing. He was just done. That was the part Jennifer never understood. David wasn't a man who made scenes. He made exits. And hers was already drawn. The first message came from Barbara, Jennifer's mother. David, please call me. This is all just a misunderstanding. He deleted it. The second came an hour later from her father, Richard. What the hell is going on? Jennifer is a wreck. You just left her? After everything. David didn't respond. By evening, his inbox was filled with voicemails from both of them. They rotated between guilt, scolding, and thinly veiled threats about how this will look in court. What they didn't understand, what Jennifer never understood, was that David wasn't their emotional punching bag anymore. He wasn't the convenient fixer, the polite in-law who swallowed insults to keep the peace. That man was gone the second Jennifer made her choice. His lawyer, Mason Graves, called the next morning. They filed first. Not surprising. They're demanding alimony, half the house value, and get this, a restraining order. David laughed once, a dry breath through his nose. Based on what? They say you threatened her mental well-being by abandoning her in a vulnerable state. She was already in a vulnerable state, David said. Morally, Mason grunted. It's weak. We've got texts, phone, records, credit logs. We even have the audio from the call she made begging you to won't stick. Let it come, David said. Let them throw the whole playbook. That night he got a knock at his door. Not the police. Not a process server. Barbara and Richard. David opened it halfway. Barbara stepped forward, arms crossed in a manufactured blend of maternal concern and upper-middle-class condescension. David, please. We need to talk. Say it from there. Richard joined in. We raised that girl to believe in family. You don't just walk away when things get hard. David looked at him, calm. No. You walk away when someone tells you they never loved you. That's not hard. That's decisive. Barbara's face tightened. She made a mistake. She was emotional. She was deceptive, David corrected. For a long time. I was there. You weren't. Richard tried again. His voice raised. You're punishing her. David stepped into the doorway now. Shoulders squared. Let me be clear. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm protecting myself from the fallout of her decisions. And the next time you show up at my door trying to manipulate the narrative, I'll let the court know you're harassing me during active proceedings. Barbara's lips parted, Speechless, Richard looked away. Jennifer can speak through her attorney. Same goes for you too, David added. And then he shut the door in their faces. No shouting, no drama, just finality. Inside, he poured himself a glass of water, sat at his work table, and pulled out a set of blueprints. A private client wanted a cabin in the woods. Clean lines, no excess, open spaces. Place built to last. David picked up a pencil. He wasn't rebuilding the past. He was designing something better. The email hit his inbox at 9:42 a.m. Subject: Fraud alert, joint credit activity. David raised an eyebrow. He hadn't used that card in months. It was only meant for emergencies, a precautionary leftover from more trusting days. He opened the message, scanned the charge. $3,217.89. Luxe Atelier. Designer Boutique. Westfield Mall. He didn't flinch. He just sighed. A $3,200 handbag right after begging from a shelter. That was Jennifer, back on her feet just long enough to leap headfirst into her old habits. High-end delusion with someone else footing the bill. David picked up the phone and cancelled the card. Then he emailed the fraud report and charge details to Mason, his attorney. Subject: Financial dissipation evidence. Jennifer Marshall. See attached transaction log. Joint account used post-separation. Notified issuer and shut down card. Include this in the counterclaim. Mason's reply was fast. Already added. This helps. Keep everything. That afternoon, David received a package. No return address. A small box, taped tight, wrapped in brown paper like something from a stranger. He opened it cautiously. Inside was the rosewood watchbox he'd handcrafted Jennifer for their 5th anniversary. 4 weeks of precision joinery, inlaid brass and hand-rubbed oil finish. It had once held her jewelry. Now it was empty, except it wasn't. The inside had been vandalized, scratched deeply with a key. The velvet lining torn. A note folded inside, written in her sharp, unmistakable script. This box was always empty, just like you. David stared at the note for a long moment, then folded it and slid it under the damaged velvet. He didn't cry. He didn't rage. He stood, walked into the garage, and placed the box on his workbench. It was a reminder, not of pain but of clarity. Jennifer wasn't wounded. She was retaliating, lashing out not because he'd hurt her, but because he hadn't stayed to be used again. He poured himself a cup of black coffee, the bitter kind he used to avoid because she said it made him smell like drywall. Now he likes it more. The designer handbag charge, the vandalized gift, the venomous note, each one a chisel strike. Not against him, but against the false sculpture she tried to mold him into. She had no idea he was already free. The text came in at 1:14 a.m., unknown number. Hey man, we should talk. It's Robert. David blinked, set his phone down, and went back to sleep. By sunrise, there were 5 more messages. Look, I didn't want to get involved, but she's a wreck. She said you have money. She won't ask, but I will. Can we just be men about this? Help her out and I'll disappear. You don't want me talking to the court about your transfers. That got his attention. David leaned back at the kitchen table, sipping coffee, thumb scrolling slowly through the desperate word vomit of a man who clearly thought extortion sounded noble if typed at just the right hour. Robert wasn't a man. He was a parasite in distress. Genes and borrowed charm, feeding off Jennifer's fantasy of unfinished romance, draining her dry, then crawling toward the next host with his hand out. And now he was trying to shake down the wrong target. David opened a new folder on his phone, named it Legal Bait, screenshotted each message, dated and timestamped them, then forwarded them to Mason with a single line. "Our friend Robert wants to testify for a fee." Mason responded within minutes. "Perfect. This nails collusion and extortion. I'll prep an affidavit and subpoena his sorry ass if they don't drop their alimony demand." David didn't reply. He didn't need to. Robert had done something Jennifer never could: expose their entire strategy with sloppy pride. Later that day, David received one final message from the number. "You think you're better than me?" He smiled faintly and locked his phone. No, he didn't think it. He knew it. David's workday had ended late. His truck sat parked on the third level of the garage, tucked beneath low fluorescent lights that flickered, just enough to be noticed. He was halfway to the driver's door when a voice echoed through the empty concrete. "David." He turned slowly. Jennifer stepped from the shadows like a stage actress waiting for her mark. Hairstyled, makeup flawless, posture calculated, less broken woman, more chess player making a last move. She wasn't crying. She wasn't begging. That wasn't her play. "Today, I need to talk," she said, stepping closer. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He simply slid his phone from his coat pocket, screen down, and tapped the record button behind his thigh. Jennifer folded her arms. "You're making me look like a monster." David said nothing. "You know what people are saying? That I cheated, that I'm unstable, that I destroyed our marriage. You could stop that." Still nothing. She stepped closer, voice colder. "I told them you had a temper, that sometimes you'd lose it when things didn't go your way, that you made me feel unsafe." His jaw didn't clench. His fists didn't ball. But his thumb tapped the screen again. Saved. She was watching his face now, waiting for a crack. "You think the court will just listen to your perfect narrative? You think because you moved some money around and bought yourself a clean hotel room that you're untouchable?" "I didn't move money," he finally said. "I protected what was mine before you could drain it." Jennifer scoffed. "So that's how it is now? You get to walk away the hero, and I'm the crazy woman who fell for the wrong guy." "No," David said calmly. "You're the woman who thought the rules didn't apply to her until they did." For a moment something flickered in her expression. Not regret, exposure. She hadn't come to reconcile. She'd come to bait him. She wanted to yell, a shove, anything to twist into proof. He opened the truck door, paused, and looked back at her one last time. "This garage has cameras, and so does my phone." Jennifer froze. David held up the screen. Her voice, clear as glass, rang out from the playback. "I told them you had a temper, that you made me feel unsafe." He stopped the clip and slipped the phone into his pocket. "If you were hoping for a scene," he said, "you'll have to hire an actor. I'm busy being a man." Then he got in and drove away, her silhouette shrinking in the mirror. The courtroom wasn't grand. No sweeping staircases, no towering pillars. Just pale walls, stiff chairs, and the slow tick of a wall clock that hadn't been reset since daylight saving time. But David Marshall knew better than anyone. Elegance didn't make something strong. Structure did. And this place, for all its blandness, had structure. Jennifer sat across from him, dressed in neutral tones, hair pulled back like she was auditioning for sympathy. Her lawyer, a smirking junior partner named Lattimore, shuffled papers theatrically, as if the volume of motion could substitute for merit. David didn't even glance at her. Mason sat beside him, calm and meticulous. No flesh, just facts. The judge, a silver-haired woman with a gaze like a plumb line, began with the financials. "Mr. Marshall, your pre-divorce account transfer of $187,000 has been reviewed." Since the account was established prior to marriage and funded exclusively through your separate business consulting, it is deemed a protected asset. Lattimore objected. Your Honor, we contend this action was taken in bad faith to deprive Mrs. Marshall of marital resources. The judge held up a hand. Sit down, counselor. We'll get to your client's transactions shortly. Jennifer flinched. David watched her face. She was starting to realize this wasn't going her way. Now, the judge continued, regarding the joint credit card charge of $3,217.89 at a luxury boutique after the date of separation. Mr. Marshall provided documentation, cancelled the card immediately, and submitted evidence of financial dissipation. That amount is excluded from shared debts. Lattimore stammered something about stress purchases. Furthermore, the judge said, we have reviewed audio evidence of Mrs. Marshall's attempt to provoke and manipulate Mr. Marshall into a confrontation. In a public garage. The recording was verified for authenticity. Jennifer shrank in her seat. David didn't gloat. He just listened. The court also acknowledges the extortion attempt made by Mr. Robert Farley, Mrs. Marshall's known affair partner, who contacted Mr. Marshall to solicit payment in exchange for silence regarding financial transfers. These messages have been entered into evidence and corroborated by phone records. Lattimore didn't speak again. He just adjusted his tie and stopped making eye contact. The ruling came down in clear, clean strokes. David retained 70% of the joint assets. Jennifer received 6 months of rehabilitative alimony, barely enough to cover rent in the city. The house would be sold, but after legal fees and debt responsibility, she would walk away with less than a quarter of what she'd expected. There would be no restraining order, no smear campaign, no moral high ground. David stood. The judge nodded once, not warmly, but with recognition. He'd fought like an architect, with planning, patience, and precision. Outside the courthouse, the sun was blinding. Mason shook his hand. You stayed calm. That made the difference. David nodded. Emotion clouds design. You're free now, Mason said. David didn't smile, but he felt something shift, something settle. He wasn't angry anymore. He was done. The apartment wasn't much. 2 bedrooms, hardwood floors, and a view of the sunrise through wide east-facing windows. But David liked the way the light spilled in every morning. No curtains, no shadows, nothing to hide. He didn't need square footage anymore. He needed peace. Most of his things stayed in storage. The only decorations were functional. A drafting table in the corner, a few tools on the wall, a half-finished model of a lakeside cabin on the counter. No wedding photos, no trace of the past except one thing. The watchbox. It sat on his workbench. The one Jennifer had carved up and returned like a final insult. The gouges in the rosewood were deep, but the grain was still good underneath. Solid. Strong. He had no intention of discarding it. That would be too easy. Instead, David worked on it. Night by night, he sanded it down, layer by layer, until the scratches disappeared. He replaced the lining with charcoal suede, buffed the brass hinges, left the lid unfinished, raw and open, just like the season he was stepping into. He didn't put a nameplate back on it. The box didn't need one anymore. Neither did he. One Friday evening, Jessica stopped by. She was a historian he'd met at a local bookstore. Sharp, steady. A woman who asked real questions and listened all the way to the end. They weren't in love, not yet. But there was something real there. Honest. She noticed the box. Did you make this? David nodded. A long time ago. I'm reworking it now. She ran her fingers along the grain. Looks like it's been through hell. He smiled. That's how you know it's worth keeping. She didn't pry. She didn't pity. She just stayed. Later that night, after she'd gone, David stood at the window with a coffee in hand, watching the dark give way to light. He thought of blueprints, of foundations, of the structures he once thought were permanent. But the truth was simple. You don't rebuild your life like it was. You strip it to the studs and choose every beam yourself. This time he wasn't building for someone else. He was designing something that could stand on its own. Something that wouldn't collapse. Something true. And trust me, the next story makes this one look like a fairy tale.